Bags, where horror lies.
Georgia here with you, aka VHS82 apostrophe. I am your regular Wednesday evening host here at BodyBags. It is the opening up of January. Happy New Year. It is officially week 532. And man, I got something special for you, man. It is a random week, of course, but not so random for me, man. I knew I was gunning for this the moment I got this in the mail, man. What an awesome gift from Glenn, aka BDG Reviews, our Monday reviewer at BodyBags. He has begun a new little collection there. He calls the Sam Hain collection. What we got here is the official, unofficial, however you want to label it, work print that is Rob Zombie's Halloween from 07. I know it's got a lot of haters out there, but so doesn't David Gordon Green's third entry, which I liked. I actually really liked. But this is an amazing. This does so much. This is a hard thing to come across. I'm not even sure how Glenn came across it, but he put this thing on disc because, you know, as Jason says, physical media matters, right? And he just such a great job. Now, this is not something you can buy. My buddy Glenn, of course, did this for me. And that is the back. He always does such a great job. And so, you know Rob's movie. You probably hate Rob's movie. Or maybe perhaps you're one of the few like me that freaking love this movie. And quite frankly, my love for it knows no bounds. It continues to grow and grow. And I really don't care what anyone thinks on that, because it's not gonna change how I feel. I love Halloween. I love the entire franchise. It is the greatest franchise. I mean, and it's got so many ways of approaching it. There's always going to be a place for someone to come in and find their own little niche of where they really enjoy to be in the overall structure of this franchise and in the multiple timelines and everything else. What the work print does, you know, one of the major complaints of the theatrical edition, and even the unrated edition, which has its own unique set of complaints and gripes from the gallery, as they say, but that it feels like two separate movies. And, well, yeah, duh. It's supposed to, I think Jason does that. It's supposed to feel like two freaking movies, because the pitch Rob gave initially, and I've already said this before, was for two separate films. One complete film, which is the first half of his Halloween 07, to come out one Halloween, and then what we see in the second half of his film was an entirely its own film the very next year on Halloween. But for whatever idiotic, stupid reason, the Weinsteins didn't bite, and so he felt compelled then, because you never know if you're going to get a second chance in this industry in terms of continuing your vision, and we know that with the whole Exorcist believer in that trilogy, David Gordon Green, being completely up in the air now in terms of a completed vision. You just don't know. And so you need to do everything you can do in one single punch, even if that's not your perfect film. And so what we get is two distinct visions, somewhat brought together. And really, you know, I think the film could have been better served if it would have had, you know, say part one. It does tell you 6 months later, however many years later, whatever. But it might, I don't know, part one, minor intermission, part two, I don't know. The fact is, it should have been two separate films. But what this work print really does is it smooths things over, and unlike the unrated edition, unlike the theatrical edition, it does feel like in its rawness, it feels like the most complete vision of what this movie should have been headed for. If you're going to take both ideas and put them together, this is the best version. It is my favorite version. I'm going to give you a few things. And we got to remember too, you know, 15 million seems like the magic number recently. We hear like -1, under 15 million, and all that it made. This was made for 15 million, this film, and it made 80 million, I think, was the final number. which is why we got a sequel, which is why my angst grew and knew no bounds when we realized that it wasn't going to get any more to that vision. Anyways, let me just real quickly give you a few things here in terms of this particular print, this version. The opening credits. It's not God of Thunder. It is Monster Mash as we enter into the Myers household, and I'm telling you, music can do an awful lot in terms of tone, in terms of how things feel. I actually thought Monster Mash. I love God of Thunder, and I think it does a lot to sort of already build up what this kid is turning into. But there's something, I don't know, weird about Monster Mash. It just works, man. It really does work. And very quickly, as we get into the meeting with Loomis, Malcolm McDowell, and Richard Lynch, the principal there, and showing the pictures to Deborah, it's right about that moment where you see Michael sitting out there in the seat, and the music kicks in, the title sequence, right? And that's when you see him, and he gets up and runs out of there, and we know what's coming. But it's just a different vibe. It's a different pacing. It's just different. It just feels a lot different. When Loomis is meeting with Michael, there's a line that he gives that I don't think you get in the theatrical or the unrated. And that is when he's asking him, you don't remember Halloween? You don't remember doing these things? And he refers to the event in the wood. And I just loved how that was given, meaning that the bully kid that he beats down is brought up. He also mentions there too, why is your hair getting so messy? And in Michael's replies, so that no one can see me. Now we'll know that's actually with the mask and everything will be utilized. I noticed with Deborah's suicide, in this version of the work print, you don't hear Boo screaming in the background, which it does add an interesting effect just to the whole dynamic. But it is interesting vibe not hearing the baby in that. There's a whole scene involving the Udo Kier and Clint Howard characters at the asylum, where they have a sit down and they deny Michael's transfer. And that is an interesting scene because you get this, it almost kind of feels like that lost TV deleted scene from the TV cut of the original Halloween where Loomis is having his meeting with the small representation of the board. And then, of course, he'll walk into Michael's room and have his comment there. It feels like that kind of a scene, but it goes well to establish these characters a little bit more and just their angst and their anger towards this kid and what he has done. Of course, he's a grown man now during this meeting, or there's this board meeting, whatever, on his transfer. There's so much more Halloween music of the original music work by Tyler Bates. Some of the songs like Tom Sawyer get more of they're there, but it gets more of a backseat. Love Hurts is still pretty prominent, but a lot of the music that you'll hear is either just changed. There is one moment where there's a classical piece that is played in multiple places. One, it works beautiful, and another place, it's the piece that we hear in Seven when Morgan Freeman's in the library doing his research. And that gets played multiple times. In one place, it's a little awkward, but this is the work print's an unfinished product, right? So you can't really lay any criticisms pretty much at anything, really, because it's just a work print. But it does give you some interesting insight in the world that lies between the theatrical and the unrated. In this one, I noticed that Ishmael is not killed. That whole scene, now Ishmael's there in the movie, but he's not killed by Michael, which is really fascinating. It is not the traditional theatrical breakout scene. It is the rape breakout scene. But again, as hard as it is to watch that scene, it does make his breakout more plausible. Um, I don't know. I don't know. I kind of wish for the work print. I kind of wish it would have been the breakout scene, but then with the work print, we're getting a glimpse into the unrated cut that we'll get. But so it's interesting. Another one. There's an interesting scene with Linda when her and Lori come out of the school. Linda bullies a couple girls, dumps a Coke over her head. Pretty sure that's not in either of the other cuts, and that goes a little ways to actually to kind of get us to not like her character so much, which may be understandable. That was taken out for the official prints. Judith's grave, we see an interesting scene, beautifully shot, with Michael standing over the person that he just killed in the cemetery, as he must have been approaching the grave and someone was going to stop him. And the sun is setting behind him. It's either setting or rising, but it looks beautiful. Absolutely. The glow, it just looks gorgeous. And then we see Michael literally pull the gravestone out, which is pretty cool. Michael's approach to Mr. Strode, whole lot different, man. He actually, you get the whole long scene where he just comes right up and Strode gets caught off guard, but then he laughs. He's like, what is it that we got in the original Halloween? Everyone deserves one good scare. Well, that was Strode's good scare. Unfortunately, it's Michael Myers, and so the rest we know unfolds. And I always thought that was a pretty powerful moment, the way he just pushes them right into the slightly open door, and then just all that mayhem ensues. There's a bit of a scene with Michael when he has the ghost sheet over him. He is holding the 6-pack of beer, and Linda's like, well, you're going to give it to me or not? And he just sort of shakes it a bit, which I dug, man. I dug it. It just worked in the scene. I wish that would have been, and maybe it is. I don't think it is. And some of the scenes. So I remember pretty well when the original trailer first dropped at midnight, whenever that was, so many years ago. I remember being so amped up and psyched up for this movie beyond. That might have been the moment I have been the most amped for any Halloween movie ever. The only time I really started to get amped up for H2, which I absolutely love H2, was when the unauthorized, I guess, work print of Rob's vision of the trailer dropped, and the use of the Moody Blues, and that was just great, man. That was just a great bit of a trailer. But it just seems like in the work print, there's more of a sense of what we got in that opening trailer, which is interesting. The music, the scenes seem very paced, much more, are cut down so they're faster. The standout scene in this movie, though, in the work print, the standout scene, well, there's two really for me. Well, I guess three. It's the opening title sequence with Monster Mash. Absolutely love it. But it's in the middle of it really is the, and I say middle, I know it's not really truly in the middle of the movie. Towards the end, we get this chase scene with Michael and Laurie from one house to the other. That chase scene almost literally puts almost anything and everything to shame, in terms of just great. That deserves to be in the upper echelon of great moments in Halloween history, in terms of films. That chase scene and how it is presented in the work print is so much freaking better than either the theatrical or unrated. It's too drawn out, and where this is much more compact. See, if the chase scene in the other two cuts of the film, let me just say, if it's 21 seconds long, in the work print, it feels like 12 seconds. It's more, he's towering over her. The minute they get out of the house, start making their way across the street, she's at the door pounding for only seconds, not even. And Tommy Doyle is there opening up the door, and they're in, and nothing just stops but to pause. It's almost immediately that door is closed. The little girl there sees Michael up in the window, screams. He just comes crashing through the door. It just, everything is faster paced. And it's beautiful. That chase scene across and again, music right from the trailer. What we saw from the trailer is in the work print there, and I think it works way better. I'm telling you what, I've seen this movie enough times, but watching the work print for the first time when that chase scene hit, I literally found myself moving to the edge of my couch. Almost, my heart was beginning to pound. And I know what's happening. I've seen this, but this was just a different cut down. And it's amazing what editing can do to a film, any film. It is amazing, the process of editing. That in the end, it's totally different. The whole entire once Lori after the pool scene, or once she gets back into the house to hide. Yeah, it must be after the pool scene. She actually gets back into the house and hides, and then we have that long drawn out, and it can feel very, very, very long. Michael's search for her in the house, tearing everything up. I think it has a great rewarding end when, after they fall off the top of the balcony and hit the ground, and she's going through the revolver, and finally that shot rings out and she just screams. And I love that moment. All that's gone. Okay, he's moving into the pool to get her. Loomis shows up, starts to plead his case with Michael. Michael seems to pause for a moment and then just starts to walk towards her. He has no choice but to shoot him. He gets Lori out of there. They get to the car. They're not in that car for, I don't know, 5 seconds. She's, gives her line, was this really the boogeyman? And he says, as a matter of fact, I do believe it was. And then boom, the window crashes. Michael comes in, grabs her right out the freaking window. My wife was down here watching that scene. And the minute that window crashes, my wife flew off about 5 feet off the couch. It was great. It's just so done so well. And then, of course, immediately you go up to the house and you're at the doorway, and Loomis is pleading his case. Michael is holding a knife to Lori. Brackett and the rest all show up in their cop cars, all start to bring out their guns, and Loomis makes his case and is able to impede the police and approach Michael, and then gets him to let her go. And as he takes her, Michael has dropped the knife, and you kind of get this sense in a moment as Loomis and Lori turn to make their way to the car. He's sort of, everything Michael has had up at that moment, it just sort of drops. And he just starts to take that step as though, as a little kid, he just wants to follow. Maybe he thinks he's going home with Loomis. It's a weird catch vibe, but to me, it feels like he thinks he's going home. He's going to go back home to the asylum. Loomis is going to be his doctor again. And in a flash of a moment, all comes to an end when Bracken and them unload and put him down in front of the house. And it's a great moment. Loomis is there in front there, just left in absolute despair. Lori's crying on the ground, and you could feel Loomis's complete sense of utter failure at what he was not able to accomplish. In fact, maybe it's really his fault. And you just kind of get the sense that Loomis's despair is not over this fully grown man that is Michael Myers now, but it's over the child that he just could not save from this darkness that had engulfed him, right? And then there's a beautiful crane shot where the camera just lifts up high, and you just sort of see Michael and Loomis just sort of slowly fade downward into the encompassing darkness until there's just darkness. And you kind of get a little voiceover of hearing Michael when he is asked to speak into the recorder the very first time. You kind of get that played, which is really cool. And enough can't be said about Rob's The cast alone, and I'm going to bring this to an end. But you know, the top cast, of course, Scout Taylor-Compton, Kristina Klebe, the three girls there, Danielle Harris, Skyler, Gisondo as Tommy Doyle. Of course, did you know he just got cast as Luther in Superman Legacy? Isn't that cool? Malcolm McDowell, of course, Brad Dourif, Daeg Faerch, Tyler Main. But then, you know, don't forget William Forsythe, Richard Lynch, Udo Kier, Clint Howard, Bill Moseley, Dee Wallace, Ken Foree, Sid Haig. This has got to be one of the greatest casts in any horror movie ever, hands down. I don't care what anyone says. That cast is freaking real, man. And, you know, the score, Tyler made score. He went on, I didn't realize, to do X and Pearl, as well as a bunch of other things. Always amazes me that Wayne Toth, the prosthetics, makeup, special makeup, you know, his history goes all the way back to Star Trek 6, The Undiscovered Country, Halloween 4, Nightmare on Elm Street 4. So his history in makeup, special makeup, prosthetics, and everything goes back a long ways. Philip Harmon always amazes me to be reminded, the cinematographer. His very first film that he shot was The Song Remains the Same, the famous Led Zeppelin piece. He also was second unit on Freddy's Dead, but of course we know he would go down also Devil's Rejects, which is beautiful, just brilliantly shot. You know, just so one last thing. The work print, I believe, is 1 hour 47 minutes. I do believe the theatrical is 149, which is the entire house scene at the end only 2 minutes. It feels a lot longer than 2 minutes. And then, of course, we know the unrated is nearly 2 hours. 2 hours and 1 minute, I think. So you have 3 cuts of the film, the theatrical, the unrated, and this absolutely outstanding work print that I believe goes far and long to meld the two films in a much more smoother one piece of a film, which is almost impossible to do when your initial vision is two separate films. But when a studio tells you, no, you can't do that, and you're not promised anything in life, well, then you do what you think you do, because you're not going to get another chance. And we can't say that's not ever the case, because we're seeing it with David Gordon Green in Exorcist. He very well, because of the lack of financial success, and that's the problem with the internet, the collectivization of the masses on the internet to basically sync projects overnight. It's just absolutely ridiculous. And yet, those who push a certain agenda really don't care if they are in a financial mess. They'll continue to push their financial agenda, whether people are seeing it or not. And they'll just call them a bunch of names for not seeing their stuff. So it's just weird. It's a weird moment in film right now. And I don't like it at all. I missed out on a more completed Rob Zombie vision for Halloween, which really the third piece wasn't even going to be him. It was going to be Lucier, who him and his buddy, that they worked together. My Bloody Valentine remake had a whole story written. Tom Atkins was going to be in it. He was going to be Laurie's psychologist. It was just, I thought it was going to be great. It's going to take place in an asylum. I thought it was going to be great. And of course, I don't know. It's just a weird time in film right now. And it's, look, Hannibal didn't even get to see its completed vision, the series, the TV series, which is one of the outstanding TV series ever. I don't know. It's a weird time. It is just a weird time in film right now. But if you can search out the work print, even if it's got you a little bit curious, and I am sorry, BodyBags videos should not be 24 minutes long. So if you're still listening to me, thank you. And I'm done. Work print, my favorite cut of the 3 cuts, my favorite, outstanding of what could have really been. Unfortunately, we'll never know exactly, but we do have this. Thank you, Glenn. This is so freaking great. I love this. I love this. I love this. Again, if you stayed this long, thank you so much. I so much appreciate it. BodyBags. I love it, man. I love it. As always, we end these things off with Go Bills.
This is not a dream. Not a dream.
we might be useful to